Welcome to the Inanda podcast. I am Kamo your host.
And I'm Dilan Baga. In today's episode, we'll be diving into St. David's Marish Inanda leadership, past, present, and the future. In today's episode, we'll be interviewing 6 boys, 3 head boys and deputy head boys, and 3 boys from within the school.
So stay tuned and see what they have to say. I'm here with the outgoing head boy of St. David's Marish Inanda, James Askew. James, how are you doing today?
Good yourself. Firstly, I just want to say thank you for having me here. It's a great privilege to be able to reflect a bit of my journey and share to the Inanda community a bit what I have to say.
That really is amazing. James, I've really been interested in your run as head boy. It's something that I think was really different and something that was really intimate with the boys. And one thing I've always wondered is head boy is a really intimidating position. A lot of responsibilities placed on you. I'd just like to know, what were some of the expectations you had? What are some of the challenges you faced going into the role, and how did you manage that?
Well, initially coming into the role, it's obviously something new. I was, not to lie, a bit nervous how to deal with the expectations, the name of the badge, the weight of it. But as I came into the role, I learned that you have to be present and you have a great team around you, your leadership team, which does definitely help you adapt to the role as long with the staff. So that's definitely what I felt coming into the role. And on that, with my biggest challenge, I think it was just differentiating between being a friend and a leader at times and finding that balance, and sometimes being harsh when it's needed.
Yeah, no, that I could definitely understand that. Especially at a school that's very tight knit like St. David's, it could be difficult to perhaps differentiate between friends and people you need to lead and taking that charge. And the next question I have for you really centers around your experience, just individually. What did it take for you to actually get to the position where you're like, I'm comfortable in leading the school? How did you feel once you realized you got there?
Well, having been at the school since grade nought, I was very familiar with the school. It was like a family. It was a safety net for me. So being at St. David's, it was very easy for me just to be around and connect with everyone, as it was very familiar with me. So in my journey in getting head boy, I just found being myself was the most important, being authentic, as essentially you're going to be appointed due to what capabilities you have and not what you display, but who you are. So just being myself, being authentic, and just being a good positive impact on everyone around me, forming genuine connections.
Yeah, and you speak about authenticity. It's something really important if you want to make your mark at a school like ours. And I really think you have made your mark. So just in your experience, you say you've been at the school for quite some time. How would you say leadership has evolved?
I think from when I began at the school, I think leadership has gone from a focus more on being strict and enforcing to leading with compassion, leading with empathy, and really forming connections and making people understand what you're doing rather than telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And I think rather allowing people to follow in their own will rather than forcing people to follow. So I think not just at St. David's but all boys schools, I think over time it's become more compassionate and more empathetic with their leadership.
You're really right, because I've seen it this year as well with you. I feel like there's been far more of a want to participate as opposed to boys feeling like they're forced to go to sports, they're forced to show up for their teams. And I think that's something amazing that you've been able to do, and I can tell in your answer. So we're obviously going to have the leadership handover very soon. What would you say your word of advice is to the next head boy, and what would you give them as your message?
I'd give a simple message. I'd just say be yourself and trust your capabilities, because essentially you've been voted in due to your own capabilities. So trust in that, rely on your own friends and your leadership team, and back yourself. I think sometimes, often going into a role such daunting as a head boy, you can often underestimate your own capabilities or overestimate the role, where if you simplify it yourself and trust your own capabilities, you can break it down to something more simple and be able to tackle it way easier.
James, it's really been a pleasure to speak to you today, to just get some of your insights on what it's been like for you as head boy, what you've noticed about the school in your time. And I'm really, really grateful to be a part of that experience. And thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Kamo, for having me on, and thank you to the podcast team for having me on. I think it's something that needs to carry on, and it's a great privilege being able to reflect.
Thank you, James.
Today I'm here with Pali Antonio Mariano, the head boy of 2023. How are you doing?
Well, thanks, and you?
Good, good. So, from your change from high school to university, what's been the biggest change or challenge you've faced?
The biggest challenge I've definitely faced is going from a place where you are the biggest fish in the smallest pond to kind of the real world where you not necessarily a nobody by any means, but you're far less important, and there's so many people who are as smart as you, as hardworking as you, as driven as you. It's that realization that you really aren't the greatest of many things, to learning that in life nothing is given, everything is earned. And that transition has been really tough, but it's been a great one. And I feel like this place really prepared me well for that, and I couldn't have asked for a better start.
Oh wow! So you'd say it was been quite a humbling experience.
Yeah, a very humbling experience, to come and compete with one or two guys at school where they really push you to your absolute maximum in certain areas. And now you go into a space in university where there's so many people on your level and better than you that you now chasing if you want to be the best. It's incredible.
That's what you're saying. And when you're in high school, in matric, you're a head boy, you're consistently in the top 10, and you played 2 first-team sports. How did you manage to balance everything and still have a social life on top of that?
To be honest with you, I think the social life took a bit of a hit, but I was willing to sacrifice what I wanted, and I feel like that's all it is. I decided quite early on in the year what I wanted from the year, and I was willing to give up certain things for that. So in terms of what led to me being able to do all those things is that I gave up in certain areas to excel in others.
Yes.
And that's, I think, a very important thing. You have to know what you want, and you have to know why you want it.
Oh, I see. So you prioritize. That's very important. And now, for the next matric leadership group and the head boy, what would be the biggest lesson or message that you have for them?
So to be honest with you, I feel like leadership at St. David's has almost transformed. When I was here, it was quite one-dimensional because we were just St. David's Inanda. These new head prefects and leadership leaders have a very tough job ahead of them because they have the job of uniting the St. David's Maris Alexandra campus with the St. David's Maris Inanda campus. And it's that cohesion, that unification of one school that I feel is the most important role for the up-and-coming leaders of St. David's. And I have full faith that with the help of Mr. Mark Teal, they're going to excel, and this school is only going to get better.
Perfect. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm here today with the current deputy head of school, Themba Gwabe. How are you doing today?
I'm alright, and yourself?
I'm great, thanks. So in your grade 11 year, you've put in quite a shift to create a name for yourself and obviously get you this position. What is it that you expected as you stepped into the position about a year ago?
As I stepped into the position, well, you said it already, I put quite a lot of work into securing my name and ensuring that people knew who I was. And I was doing quite a lot. So going into the position, I thought I'd just keep doing what I was doing, you understand? Because I had so much workload last year, I thought I'd just continue doing that. But stepping into the role, I realized that it wasn't as clear as I thought it was going to be. It was mostly ambiguous. For the most part, you had to make your own work. So I think, if I'm to summarize that, stepping into the role, I expected structure, I expected form, I expected order, of which I received none, and I received mostly the chance to make what I wanted of myself. You get me?
I see what you're saying. And obviously this year's been a difficult year, matric, portfolios and leadership. How is it that you manage to balance everything?
I think I'm not the best person to talk to about balance, because I did suffer a burnout in term 1 this year, term 2. Term 3, because of the leadership taking a step back, I've been able to focus on academics more, so I haven't gone through a burnout. But I think I did suffer a burnout. To prevent a burnout, it's to not give yourself as much responsibility as you think you can take. Because you'd rather operate in a comfortable area, and I understand that people always say, push out of your comfort zone, but sometimes the comfort zone is the only thing keeping you going. Like, it's the only thing keeping you going. So if you push too much out of your comfort zone, you're eventually going to get to a point where you can't do anything anymore. So I'd say do what's manageable, slightly deviate from that, but don't do too much because you expect to just one day be able to manage all of that.
I see what you're saying. That's very important, so then obviously we don't burn out. And now from your time in grade 8 now till matric, what's the biggest change that you've noticed within leadership?
The biggest change that I've noticed within leadership, I think it's the fact that in my grade 8, my mentors and my head boy of the time and my matrics in general, they were perpetuating this hard, staunch boys' school culture, you understand? And it was more about being tough than being assimilated in. I think one thing that has really progressed throughout my years at high school, and most importantly in our year, I think we try to focus on the relationships built. And people, for the most part, they say you guys are too soft in the grade 8s, or the grade 8s don't know anything. But it's a simple fact that we've built a relationship with the grade 8s that are going to last for life. Because if you look at the mentor-mentee structure, in many cases, past grade 8 and matric, mentors and mentees don't stay in contact. But I think with most matrics, we built a connection, whereas we'll have friends and peers for life. As we move out of the school systems, we'll be peers in age group, and we'll move on to lifelong friendships instead of just hard, staunch boys' school culture.
And I think that's a very important thing. One thing that you guys here did correctly was the mentorship, and the bonds that you create with your grade 8s, like you said, is everlasting, and it's very important for this new world that we're entering into.
Completely.
So my final question for you is, what saying or piece of advice do you have for the next upcoming leadership group?
I think if I had one piece of advice for leadership group, I'd say the quality of a leader is not defined by the quality of their own actions, but rather the quality of the people they lead. A true leader pushes for self-leadership, not the reliance on leaders.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thanks, bro.
Awesome.
I'm here with George Psaros, a grade 10 student here at St. David's. George, I've really watched your journey at the school, and I've seen how you've just embraced every space there is. I've seen you in the musical space, I've seen you in public speaking, and you're really amazing at that. And I've also seen how you observe the leadership at our school, and I've always wanted to know what your thoughts are of how leadership has been this year, and just your general comments about how it's been.
So this year it was a good year. There were lots of great examples that were set. They were quite firm with how they did things. They were strict. They were very prompt. Their communication, I think, could have been a little bit better. Like, especially in my space, they could have let us know a little bit earlier about certain things that were happening. But I thought it was quite a good year of leadership.
Yeah, and speaking of our leadership this year, what for you has really stuck out? And you could even think of a person in our leadership structure that stuck out to you in terms of the things they've done. Who would you say that is?
So, for example, I'd say what Themba Gwabe did this year, a small little act like this, something that stuck with me is the fact that he was very accountable for his actions. He didn't only, so for example, I'll say if you forgot your house tie or something like that on a specific day, you'd be in trouble and you'd have to go and sit at break detention. And there was often times where some of the leaders, they would dish out punishments and stuff, but they wouldn't be accountable when it happened to them. Whereas Themba Gwabe, he came to us and he told us one day, he says, look, I forgot my tie, I'm going to sit throughout the break with you guys. And I thought that was a very good example.
I mean, it is really something we pride ourselves on the school, and we like to say that the people at the top should also be accountable to the same values, the same expectations.
Yes.
And Themba is a perfect example. I definitely agree with you on that. And how would you say that has been an evolution from previous leaders you've seen, perhaps?
Well, there hasn't really been an example that has stood out so much to me before, but there has been, like in 2023, Pali. Whenever he would make a mistake, especially on grade 8 camp and stuff, he told us we need to be accountable. He taught us all of those lessons, and I saw it happen, especially during the rugby space. They didn't have the greatest rugby season, and he told us, he says, it's our fault. He says, we'll try and work harder each week. So he showed us properly that what you say is what you get, and to be accountable.
Yeah, so there's that level of openness that you expect from leaders, and I think that just makes the experience far greater, because you feel like if this person knows that they don't necessarily have to come to me with all of these things, they can get through the year still in that position, they don't have to tell me anything, but they are. It tells you about the kinds of people they are in leadership and that they care about you. So I guess my last question for you, George, is what are you expecting to see in the new leadership that's coming into the school?
So a lot of the same stuff that's happened in my few years that I've been here at St. David's. It's been great, and I hope they can keep the standards just as high. One thing that I would like to see an improvement on is sometimes there was a lot of hypocrisy. So they tell us to do certain things, but they would sit back and they wouldn't do it themselves. And I find that that's not a good quality to have as a leader. You should be with the pack as well, like leading them, but leading them from behind.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there, because I think being a leader takes a level of you being able to understand that, look, there are places that I've missed out on, and not waiting for the people around you to fish that out. Be like, look, you say all of these things, but you don't do what you say you do. And I think that's great. George, it's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much.
Today I'm here with Liema Yankees from grade 9. How are you doing, Liema?
I'm well in yourself, Dylan.
Good, good. So in grade 9, how's your experience been with the matrics and the current leadership group?
I feel like every leadership group has their strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like there's definitely a lot of strengths that this year's matric leadership group has had. But a few of the weaknesses that I feel like a lot of boys keep like pointing out is the fact that firstly our war cries just feel like super recycled, that we're not generating anything new, and I think that's a valid call out. But secondly, on like this idea of how like the matrics aren't really enforcing like people who like don't engage within the school culture to the fullest extent as much. I think that those are two very valid call outs on like what the failures of the matric group this year, but they've definitely had a lot of strengths. They've definitely done a lot to ensure that some of the boys are trying their best to act in line. They've definitely tried to keep a precedent as to ensure that the boys like keep in line, and I think that's something that's really valuable within this year's matric leadership group. So I think as an overview, I think that they've definitely done a bit, but on the comparative as well, there's definitely a few places under which they've lacked, and I think that that's just an overall summary of this matric leadership group. Whether I feel about it, I'm very like not necessarily apathetic, but I'm very neutral on the stance. I feel like I've told you, their strengths and weaknesses, and I've really just been analyzing what they've been doing as of late. And yeah.
Okay, perfect. I love how you highlighted both the ups and the downs, because I think that's how it goes with each matric group. So now, I wanted to ask you something. From grade 8 to now grade 9, what is a big change that you've noticed with the two different matric groups?
I feel like the two different matric groups definitely focused on very different things. So I think this year's or last year's matric group particularly focused on things like setting high bars for things like excellence, right? The fact that you had like 3 guys in the top 10 all getting 95% averages, right? Or the fact that like in the sports field, one of the best years that St. David's has ever had in terms of sport. I think that those are a few very key like real goals that they've had. But on the comparative as well on this year, maybe sport has not been something that we've dived as deep into. But I think that there's definitely been a lot more progression in terms of culturals, i.e. the music department has definitely seen a huge step up this year, and I think that's something that's super valuable. Definitely, like I'm involved in the debating space, and I think that's something that's definitely taken a huge step up. But also in terms of how the boys are interacting here at school, it's definitely a much friendlier environment, I would say. And I think that overall, on the comparative, I think that they're two very different groups, and I think that they have achieved two very different things throughout their time at Inanda.
So I love how you pointed out that one of the things that this year's group ensured is that it's a friendly place, because for a school I think that's a very important aspect. And now for my final question, I just wanted to ask you, for this upcoming leadership group of 2026, what expectations do you have of them?
I genuinely just expect them to kind of uphold what's been said for them. And so the class of 2024 has done a good job at setting high bars in terms of excellence. The class of 2025 has set good foundational layers in terms of how we ought like respect each other in the school space that we share. And I think that those are things that are super valuable, and so long as the class of 2026 is able to expand on them and really create a really strong space that is Inanda, I think that that's something that we'll value, and I think that they could easily be the best year that Inanda's ever seen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liema. I really appreciate you being on this episode here today with us. And I look forward to doing many more. Thank you. This afternoon I'm here with Justin Ashgard from grade 8. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you, Dylan?
I'm great, thanks. So, how's your year been so far in grade 8?
Yeah, it's been great. Lots of different opportunities, and it's good to connect with new friends.
And have you say in this 8 months, 9 months, have you properly settled in and have found that sense of belonging?
Yeah, most of the St. David's kids are just very belonging, and they help you to be comfortable in the new school space.
That's great. And I wanted to ask, what role did the matrics play in this belonging?
I think the matrics just showed great leadership in letting us be approachable towards them, and they were very comfortable with us asking them for help or things around the school like that.
That's great. So I hear the matrics from this year had a phenomenal mentorship program. How did you find your personal experience? Can you please expand on that?
I just think it was great to connect with one matric as your mentor, or somebody that you can go to when you need help or when you need to do something around the school or something like that. But I just think it's such a great leadership program for us to connect with one another.
That's great. And over this past year, you've obviously watched some of the grade 11s pushing for leadership. What is the expectations that you have for them for this upcoming year?
I think the expectation, as I said, is just to stay approachable to the younger kids and for everyone, just so they can look at them with leadership. Because when they're authentic and set the example, I think people will naturally follow them.
I see that, so they're being a role model.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.